Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. I was talking a few weeks ago about heart disease and how that is the number one killer of both men and women. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about how to lower our cholesterol, because it's incredible how many of us are put on one of those lipid lowering drugs like Lipitor or others in that family. They're called statins. Many of you might be on one already. My opinion is that doctors put people on these a little bit too quickly. And certainly my experience is that most doctors don't talk to patients about the many ways that you can lower your cholesterol without taking statins. And statins have a lot of side effects. I would not want to take one unless I absolutely had to. Statins cause muscle pain, weakness, fatigue, constipation, other GI problems, sleep problems. They can lower your platelet count. There's a whole list of things can happen when you start on these medications. So if you can lower your cholesterol without taking one of these, that is amazing. Now, if your doctor's already put you on one of these drugs, my hope is that you can wean off it over time. So I'm going to talk to you about natural ways, meaning ways that we can adjust with our own lifestyle and supplements and food to lower your cholesterol without taking drugs. So just a little bit of background. Many of us don't know, or many of us don't think about the fact that cholesterol is only made by animals. It's actually a product of animal cell walls. So when we eat animal products, and that is meat, fish, chicken, eggs, and dairy, that's it. Only meat, fish, chicken, eggs, and dairy have cholesterol. Anything that's a plant, even an oily plant, avocado, nuts, peanut butter, you name it. If it didn't come from an animal, it does not have cholesterol in it. So if we're eating meat, fish, chicken, eggs, and or dairy, we're consuming some cholesterol. That's one source of cholesterol. The other source is our own liver. Because we're an animal, we make cholesterol too. So we can change both of those things. And the statins work on the pathway of reducing production of cholesterol from our liver, which is great, but we can also reduce our blood cholesterol by changing what we eat and by taking natural products that can decrease production of cholesterol from our liver. So let's talk about that. First of all, in the diet category, you don't have to be vegan, but most of us have some room to decrease the amount of animal products that we're consuming. Many of you know that I'm vegetarian, but I do eat eggs. And I do eat some dairy. So I'm still consuming some cholesterol. Now, even if I was a strict vegan, I could still have high cholesterol because sometimes we've got a genetic predisposition to just make more cholesterol in our liver. Now, we need cholesterol. It's a necessary part of our cell walls. It's needed to make the myelin that coats all of our nerves, and it's in every cell in our body. So we need some, which is why we make it. But when we get too much, as we know, it can increase the risk of heart disease. So decreasing the animal products that we're consuming is a really good idea. Think about it. You might want to have one vegetarian day a week. You could have red meat no more than once a week. You could just decrease portion size. As we were talking about when I was talking to Kelly Workman a few weeks ago on this show, the portion size of your protein should be the size of the palm of your hand. So just simply eating less in whatever form that you can. And then decreasing the fatty content of the animal products that we're eating. We can reduce the amount of cholesterol that we're eating dramatically just by making small changes. And along with that, we're probably going to lose weight. Now, I understand that I'm always talking about eating more protein, but we can do that in ways that don't increase the amount of animal products that we're eating. And you guys all know about that because I'm always talking to you about being vegetarian and getting enough protein. So we can decrease that in our diet. Now, the other thing we can do is decrease the amount of cholesterol that our liver produces. Now, we can't change our genes, and sometimes this just runs in the family, but I'm going to talk to you about some natural ways that we can do that as well. Pretty exciting, right? So just backing up a little bit, what numbers do we want for our cholesterol? Well, if you're getting your blood drawn, your doctor's going to ask you to do that fasting. Now, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of difference. If you haven't eaten a lot of animal products, it won't make a difference. But generally, we check cholesterol fasting. So as you know, you're going to see a total number for your cholesterol. We used to always say that that should be 200 or less. Well, now we don't look at the total so much because Many of you know there's a good kind of cholesterol called HDL, or high density lipoprotein, and we want that to be as high as possible. Greater than 60 is a great number. So if you've got a very high HDL, your total number is going to be a bit high too. Now, the important thing is the ratio between the total cholesterol and the HDL, and we want that ratio to be 3.5 or less. So for example, if your total cholesterol is 250, but your HDL is 100, your ratio is still less than 3.5, and that's okay. We also want your LDL, that's the low density lipoprotein, that's the one that we don't want to be too high, to be ideally less than 100. Some labs use 110. Over the years since I've been in practice, that number keeps dropping. Suffice to say, we want it to be as low as possible because it's the LDL that combines with fat and calcium and sticks onto the blood vessels that supply our heart with oxygen and then ultimately cause us to have a heart attack. And that's why we focus so much on lowering LDL. Now, another thing we're going to see in our lipid panel is our triglycerides. Now, there's a big range of triglycerides. Again, it's something that can be familial, that we make more in our liver, but we ideally want triglycerides to be about less than 100. So kind of a perfect lipid panel. I was taught 100, 100, 100. If we had an HDL of 100, triglycerides of 100, and an LDL of 100, that would be great. And it's probably not going to be that perfect, but that's a good direction to head in, and not worrying so much about the total cholesterol. Now, you may have an extended lipid panel, and your doctor might look at something called VLDL, which is the very low density lipoprotein. That one we really want to be low. And there are some other cardiac markers that you can check for too. If you've got a high risk of heart disease in your family, for example, if you have people in their 40s who've died of a heart attack, you're going to want to do that extended panel and even do a scan looking for calcium deposits in your heart, because that's a really easy thing to do. That looks to see if you've already got some of those plaques in the heart, because the calcium lights up. If you do, it can be treated early. If you don't, that's even better. So let's talk about some of the natural products that you can take that can lower your cholesterol without taking a statin. And I would try this personally for at least a few months before you start on a statin. And if your doctor's just wanting to start you on a statin, maybe have this conversation with them, because what I'm telling you is based in science. There are lots of really good studies backing up taking these plant-based, not medications, plant-based supplements before you move to taking Lipitor or similar drugs. But many doctors haven't heard about them, just like I wasn't taught about them, and drug companies would rather you don't know about them either, because this stuff is plant-based and it's not sold by a drug company, so nobody's making much money off of it. But let's start with something called plant sterols. So plant sterols, similar to cholesterol, are sterols. They're very similar in the way they look in your body. So if you're eating your food and you eat a large quantity of plant sterols, your body's going to preferentially absorb the plant sterol, and a lot of the cholesterol is going to pass through your system and come out in your fecal waste. So that's pretty cool. Now, the average American diet has about 300 milligrams of plant sterols. It's in every plant that we eat. In order to lower cholesterol, we want to get about 2,000 milligrams, which is pretty impossible to do unless you have nothing to do except sit around and eat plants all day. It's a lot easier to take a supplement to boost those levels up. So because plant sterols work by blocking the absorption of cholesterol, we need to take them alongside our food. So you would take, for example, 1,000 milligrams of plant sterol with your lunch and say the other 1,000 with your dinner. If you look on Amazon, there are literally tons of different brands, but one that I really like, and I take it myself, I have it right here. It's made by Piper. Piper makes these yummy little gummies, and they put them in these cute little packets, which have 4 gummies in each one. 4 gummies is how much you should take in a day. So it's kind of nice the way they packaged it, because we understand that you have to take this with you. This has got to be with you at lunch and with you at dinner or whenever you're eating. So it's a little bit difficult. You can't just keep it in the bathroom. But I'm going to open this up, and I'll show you what these look like. They're actually quite delicious little gummies, and they taste yummy. They're very low in sugar and carbs, so it's not going to mess up your weight loss plan. And it's a little sweet, delicious treat that you can take as dessert. So 2 of these after lunch, 2 of these after dinner. This has more than 2,000 milligrams of plant sterol. It's going to significantly lower your cholesterol. So studies have shown that you can lower your cholesterol by up to 20% without taking any medication. And that would be if you didn't change your diet. So if you change your diet a little bit and take this, I've seen people drop their cholesterol from 150 to 100 in 6 to 8 weeks. So it's really fun to do that and then check your labs again in a couple of months and see how much it's changed. So that's an option, and lots of brands out there. That's just one that I like because it tastes really good. So look for something that has a total of about 2,000 milligrams a day, and then break it up into 2 or 3 different sessions depending on what your eating plan is. Now, if you didn't eat any cholesterol with that particular meal, this is not going to help. So as you guys know, I eat eggs. If I eat my meal with my vegetarian protein powder, no cholesterol in that, but I eat a couple of boiled eggs, I'll take my plant sterol after that, and it's really yummy, blocks some of the cholesterol from the eggs. So that's a win-win. Now there's another similar substance called plant stanols, very similar to plant sterols, blocks absorption of cholesterol. So you might find on Amazon that there's a bunch of plant stanol products as well. And similarly, you'd want to take those with food, total of about 2 grams a day. There's a really yummy brand called Benecol. I have it right here. Benecol makes these really good chocolate chews. Again, it's just another version of the same thing depending on your taste. They're little chocolate chewy things. You have 4 a day. Gets you your 2 grams of plant stanols or sterols. Either one works. So those are just some brands that I love. I'm not paid by either of these companies, but I try all these things out and I'm just sharing that with you. So that's a great option. And along with lowering the cholesterol in your diet, that's really going to help with the aspect of how much cholesterol we're consuming and how much we absorb from our food. Now, the other pathway is how much we make in our liver. And I had always been taught that we can't really change that. It's mostly genetic. It's just what our liver does. Drugs like Lipitor act by reducing the production of cholesterol in the liver. And I was told that was the only thing we could do. Well, that's actually not true. There's some very good scientific evidence that this plant-based stuff called red yeast rice. Now, this is a product made by Thorne, and I love Thorne. They make great pharmaceutical-grade vitamins. They have a great website. You can actually even get these on Amazon. But Thorne makes this product called Choleast 900. So Choleast 900 is red yeast rice. So believe it or not, red yeast rice has a similar mechanism to Lipitor and its other drugs in that category, and it reduces production of cholesterol in the liver. So they look like this, just a little capsule. So studies on red yeast rice have shown not only that it decreases cholesterol, but actually lowers the incidence of dying from a heart attack. Pretty impressive data. And doctors are not taught about this. It's quite fascinating, but I think we all know why, because drug companies don't want us to know about this because we'd stop prescribing those very expensive drugs. Now, the 900 in the name of this product applies to the amount of red yeast rice in this particular pill. It's 900 milligrams. The studies that I have read on red yeast rice need about twice that much, but I would definitely start with just 1 a day and then go up to 2 if you need to, because those studies were done on men, and we really don't know how that compares to women. But taking the red yeast rice just once a day, along with the plant sterols or stanols, you will see a reduction in your cholesterol, both from decreased production from the liver and decreased absorption from your food. And I am taking both of these right now because even though I'm a vegetarian, as we've talked about before, women who go through menopause typically see an increase in their LDL. My LDL had always been less than 100, way less than 100, like 70 or 80, something like that. In this past 2 years, it started creeping up a little bit over 100. So I'm very excited to say that my cholesterol is now below 100. Now, I still eat my eggs, but I take my plant sterols, my red yeast rice, and I'm sure that's making a difference. Now, an interesting fact is if you take enough red yeast rice, you actually can cause some of the same side effects that we see with statins, like muscle pain and fatigue. Because it works on a similar pathway, it actually can have some of those same side effects. So at the 900 milligram dose, I have never seen those side effects, but that's one reason why I'm suggesting that when you start taking red yeast rice, Even though it's a plant-based product, I would start with 1 a day and then go up to 2 a day if you can, if you're not having any side effects from it, which I don't expect. But you do want to be aware that it can act a little bit like those same drugs. So a couple of really important, exciting ways that you can lower your cholesterol without taking any medication. Now, all of these products are not free. So you might think, well, gosh, it's cheaper for me just to take Lipitor. Might be in the short term, but in the long term, way better for your body to avoid those prescription drugs. Each one of these that I showed you is around $40. So the red yeast rice, for example, even though it's between $45 and $50, there are 120 capsules in here. So if you take 1 a day, it's obviously going to last 120 days. So it's pretty good value. The other products, the Benecol Chews, this is enough for a month. So if you eat 4 of these a day, it's going to last about 30 days. There's 120 in each bag. Now, that costs about $40, and similar with those Piper brand gummies. So say you're spending $100 a month on lowering your cholesterol. In my opinion, that is a good investment because you're eating plant-based things and not chemicals that can cause you harm. And it is a little bit of work to do this, but you are worth it. So my advice is not to take a statin right off the bat. If your LDL cholesterol is less than 120, I would just manage it with diet. If it's, say, 120 to 180 or so, I would absolutely try this first before you get on any other plan. In fact, even if it's higher than that, I would try this first in combination with decreasing animal products in your diet, taking red yeast rice, either a plant sterol or plant stanol, and both together is great. So we're attacking both pathways. And then check again in about 2 months. And chances are you're able to reduce your cholesterol by 20% or more, hopefully not get on those medications in the first place. And then long term, of course, the goal is that it decreases your risk of dying from a heart attack. That's what this is all for, right? And there is some really good evidence that taking these things and lowering your LDL will actually reduce your risk of dying from a heart attack. And that makes it all worth it. So if you learned something today, please don't forget to subscribe. Share it with your friends. If you have some ideas about topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear about those below as well. And I can't wait to see you next week.